Vancouver beat Boston in overtime and there was not much rejoicing. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So round 13. Before we go into it, any thoughts about how it went?
Just a lot of penalties. I thought it was a bit,
There
it was a bit too penalty heavy, and I thought it was really unfair.
there was quite a few penalties. I think to remember for that game, or both the games, was that both the referees are quite inexperienced, and they can only call what they see, and they're both fairly new. So there's going to be penalties which are going to sometimes feel a bit lopsided. That's just going to happen sometimes. Anyone played an outdoor sport here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the wind changes at half time, and so both ways you get a headwind.
yep.
One of the issues at the moment is that there was a change in the refereeing structure at iceHQ a little while ago, and a fairly decent amount of churn in terms of referees. What would normally happen when you have an inexperienced referee is you have them partnered up with a very experienced referee to allow them to learn under a bit of guidance. The problem is we're getting referees now who have only been reffing for like 6 months as the experienced ref. So we're going to get issues where it's going to appear to be a bit lopsided. They're not doing it deliberately. No one's singling out anyone as we don't like you and we like someone else. It's not that. It's just basically inexperienced referees, and also pressure. When you're under pressure, you give away penalties. We've all noticed it. A team that's under a lot of defensive pressure is going to cough up more penalties. You're much less likely to get a penalty when you're on attack than when you are defending. It's just the nature of it. Anything else? It was Lockie's night for the Tigers, wasn't it? He got 5.
I still think it was like a really close game, and the wingers and centre did really good at like back checking. So I think that was really good.
You're referring to the Jokers game?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was an excellent game. It was one of those things that absolutely could have gone either way. And it was only at the last when they got that penalty, that goal in the power play. And then obviously the shorthander because we pulled the goalie because we've got to do something. That the scoreline opened up to something that was a bit less reflective of how the game went. But that's the nature of it. You take more risks at the finish if you're behind, and you're trying to win. So yeah, I thought on the whole, both teams actually playing very good structured games. There are some things we still want to get better. There are some structural things which are still, pretty defective in terms of our overall game plan. But on the whole, pretty much everyone's where they need to be most of the time, and that's the whole point of it. If we're where we should be most of the time, we give ourselves a good chance to win games, but almost regardless of individual skill. If you're just in the right place with your stick on the ice, sometimes things will just happen. It's the nature of the game. Jane, who you know, our team manager, and my wife, she got a goal on their game, the first goal of the game, and her first goal for this season, with a deflection off her stick, which the referees didn't see, but she knew she'd done it. And you can see if you watch the video and slow it right down and kind of go frame by frame, you can see where the puck hits her stick and deflects a little bit and just goes over the shoulder of the goalie. Right place, right time. She's not a great shooter, but if you're in the right place, magic happens. But yeah, the back check was very effective, and as a result, most of the time our goalies were pretty well protected.
Just one thing. Other thing I was thinking was that there's a lot of dumping of the pucks, into the icing zone behind the goal.
Yep.
What's the rule in higher levels? It's in higher levels that'd be proper icing, and you'd be sent back to where the puck is hit from.
Well, at the moment, there's a hybrid icing. It keeps getting more and more confusing every time they try and change the rules. It actually gets a little bit more complicated. In the higher grades at the moment, there's a hybrid of proper hybrid icing and iceHQ icing, where the game continues unless you put pressure on the opposition. So you can do what's known as beating and icing. So if you're the defending team and you've cleared the puck down the other end, but the referees decide by the time you get roughly to the face-off dots that you were going to get to the puck first, so you can race the opposition there, then you can cancel the icing. But there are safety issues associated with that as well. You can imagine, skating as fast as you can to the other end of the rink and not being able to stop.
Yeah.
Potential for injury.
Yeah, no, I just mentioned it because I felt that all it ended up doing is, well, slowing the game down and turning possession over. And I personally, have a forward, I'd just like to see more pucks, delivered into the neutral zone or into their O zone, not pucks just going flying over right across behind the goal line.
It's a learning skill for defensive players to be able to actually pass well out of the zone. And our game plan, to be perfectly honest, is put the puck down the other end and have an aggressive forecheck, and then get turnovers in the defensive zone, and it works. It works. In fact, it works at just about every level of hockey. And you can see, I don't know if you're watching that Vancouver game I just showed you, but Vancouver did a great job of forechecking against Boston, basically kept them stuck in their zone because they had a good forecheck. They were dumping the puck in. If you watch the NHL games, a lot of the times when they're under pressure, as soon as they cross the center line, they dump the puck in. You ever noticed?
I can't say I watch many NHL games, to be honest.
Or do your homework. It's what happens, right? If you're under pressure, you put the puck down the other end. And that relieves the pressure and allows you to use your forecheck and puts the pressure on the other team. And it's all about pressure management at the end of the day. Our game plan isn't dump the puck down the other end all the time. We have the weak side winger moving across and up the ice. So ultimately, our game plan is to pass to the player skating up the middle. That's ultimately our game plan who's on a fast break. But it doesn't always work. So when it doesn't work, if the puck ends up down the other end, that's not a problem. At least it's down the other end. They're not going to score from there, and we've got a chance to score. So that's the basic game plan, and it works. Any other thoughts and comments? No. Okay. We'll start looking at the games. So I stuck all the videos up on the Facebook group as usual. Do we want to look at the Jokers game or the Tigers game first?
Feel like there's no
Tigers.
secret here.
All I got there was 2-in-1. So who got in first?
I think I heard Tigers first.
Tigers first. All right, let's have a look at the Tigers stuff. Tigers was a pretty good night for the Tigers. They outshot in the end. I think they outshot the Griffins about 4 or 5 to 1, which was pretty handy. And there was almost a Launceston hat trick by Lockie. Anyone know what a Launceston hat trick is? We made it up ourselves. So
I
you
think
probably
it's six.
it's a double hat trick because Launceston 2 heads. So we kind of came up with that name, and Gossie and I were commentating one of the Pro League games a couple of weeks ago, and one of the guys got 5. We're like, what are we going to call it if he gets 6? Double hat trick sounds a bit boring. We'd call it a Tasmanian hat trick, but that's a bit kind of, it's a bit rough on the Tasmanian. So let's call it Launceston. No one knows what that is. So, all right, Tigers, yeah. Let's have a look. Have a look at some of the defensive zone face-offs and things like that. So this is about halfway through the second, as you can see from the video. And you can see the scoring ratio. We've shot 12 to their 4. That's 3 to 1, which is pretty handy. It also reflects the score. Again, it's usually a pretty good indication. We know the Southern Lights goaltender is very, very good, and he made some incredible saves. I'm sure Nikki probably feels robbed. She got a couple of really good shots on him that probably in just about any other goalie in C grade would have gone in. But he's pretty good. Anyway, let's have a look and see what happens here. Is that a good setup for a defensive zone face-off?
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty close to spot on, isn't it? At least that part of it. What are your thoughts on that little bit of play?
That was a good breakaway.
Wasn't it? That was a classic example of the defensive zone face-off working well. You can see right from the very start of it, watch what happens with our winger with his initial movement. Right? Pretty much moving straight away. Now, went straight into his feet, but that's all right because he was already moving forwards. Both of our wingers are on the move. We clear the puck out and away we go. And it creates a great scoring opportunity. And we get about 3 really good shots in that little play. It's like, that's how it should work. That's how everyone should be. And then we kept the puck in pretty well and got some good sustained pressure and managed to get quite a lot of shots on them, which was nice. Now, there was a penalty goal given, a penalty shot given away. And unfortunately, the video doesn't start until after the actual penalty offence happened, where I think Lockie got hooked. And before that, Nicky had a fantastic rebound, which he turned into a really, really good shot, which against any other goalie in the grade almost definitely would have gone in. It was an absolute ripper. But we didn't get on the video, I'm afraid, but we did get this. So this is kind of where it starts. Lockie gets his penalty shot. It falls on his backside.
I feel like Lockie fell over after every single goal he made.
Right. So what he did there with his goal is not how I would teach you to take a penalty shot. And it actually, in our training session, when we have one, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to work on penalty shots. One of the things we're going to do is actually we're all going to get 2 or 3 goes at doing it. And the reason for that is because although it's relatively rare in regular season games, in semi-finals and finals, if you're all tied up at the end of regulation, which happens, you get overtime. If you're all tied up at the end of overtime, it goes to a penalty shootout. If you haven't done one before, you're going to kind of panic a bit. Whereas at least if you've done a couple, you've got a vague idea of what to do. We don't expect you to be experts at penalty shots by any stretch of the imagination. It's unlikely that you'll get to do very many in your hockey career. It is a pretty rare thing, but they're fun for starters. Goalies don't like them so much, but for the rest of us, they're good fun. And it's good to just kind of have it under your belt so you've done it a bit. So Lockie, gets a penalty shot there, skates pretty much straight at the goalie and then dekes the goalie. And that works. We've seen that got around the back of him. But that's not generally how I'd teach an effective approach on a penalty shot. And we'll go through that when we do our training session. But as you can see, it didn't matter because he worked. He got his goal, got his first one of 5. So he had a pretty good night. But it wasn't all Lockie. The scoreboard makes it look like it was all Lockie all night, but it absolutely wasn't. It was a very even spread of shots on the net. He's went in, which was now. So you're playing the Southern Lights, aren't you? Jokers. Where are your lights? Don't look at it. Maybe not. Oh, that's why it was on a penalty kill. Let's have a look at talking about penalties. Let's watch this one. I don't know what the penalty was for, but the Tigers are on a penalty kill. Well, let's just have a look at the structure and see if it works or if it breaks down or if it gets set up right in the first place. So to start off with a penalty kill, that's actually not such a bad setup. I'd probably prefer to see, I think that's Blake. Probably prefer to see Blake a little bit higher up. So instead of being there, probably more here than back here. Not a huge deal, but just an offensive player with the puck who's back there is not going to score a goal. And that's our priority, is to defend it. Whereas if it comes here, we do care about them. Let's see what happens. Look at what's just happened.
Well, I think we cleared the puck a couple of times, and then we let one player kind of go, and then made sure that we stayed back in like a triangle.
Craig's gone off on, yeah, you guys have done the right thing by triangling it up when you kind of realize what's happened. But Craig's gone on a little bit of a adventure. Maybe he didn't realize it was a penalty. He has missed quite a lot of games, so I don't know how much game sense he has, but he overdid the forecheck, and look where he's ended up. Right, he's out of the game. We're now 3-on-5, which is a bad situation. If you're going to do that forecheck, and I'm starting to speak to a couple of you, I spoke to Jack about it during last week's game, and also I think Lockie and a couple of the other centers will start thinking about some slightly more aggressive penalty killing. You've got to be very careful if you do go on that little adventure up the ice that you don't end up behind the puck. You're basically going up there to put pressure on them to break up their pattern and maybe make them make a mistake. You might get an intercept if you're really lucky, but it's just about putting pressure on them a little bit more. You don't want to end up way down at the goal line when the puck's going the other way, because now it's 5-on-3. 5-on-3, you're much more likely to get scored on. Especially if you can't skate very well and it takes you forever to get back. Almost a shot. All right, so Lockie's gone off on a bit of an adventure, but he's quick enough to get back. So now he's got back in time to get that box structure happening again, and now it's 5-on-4 instead of 5-on-3. So that's not too bad. He did go probably a little bit further in to put pressure on them than I'm happy with, but it's the first time he's done it, and it was a conscious decision rather than, I think, just kind of being a bit random about it. So what have we got there?
I feel like it's only like 3 versus 4 of us. Like their 2 are not really participating.
We've collapsed a little bit on our box. Probably overextended a little bit on the check. So if we just roll that back a couple of frames, watch what happens over here in the corner near the moat sign. So at that point, it gets a little bit ambiguous. But if I was Lockie, I'd probably be thinking, I'm not doing anything useful here. I'd be better off in the high slot. Because what we have there is like only one player defending the middle. Now, luckily for us, they're all over the place. I think they're getting a change or something. So we're kind of not under a lot of threat. That might have actually been what he was thinking. I haven't had a chance to talk to him about it yet. So at that point, what were you thinking? Was that a conscious decision or were you just a little bit lost? Because if it's a conscious decision, that's all right. If you look up the ice and you see that there's no one there, when there's no one coming because they're all doing a change or something or other, then you can be a lot more lax with your positioning or even opportunistic with your positioning. So what they've kind of done there is they've set up almost like an aggressive check on those. So there's 3-on-2 on us defending. We've actually outnumbered them. But of course, that means behind us, there's potentially a problem, but 2 of them are getting a change and they're really slow at changing. So maybe not as bad as it looks at first. Now it's a bit messy, isn't it? And what have we just given away?
A scoring opportunity.
Really good scoring chance. Unmarked, high slot. Oh, lucky. Not lucky enough. Sad didn't see that one coming. I think he was screened. But you can see when that structure breaks down, it creates those opportunities and provides those lanes. So we've got to be mindful of it. So you've got to maintain the discipline of trying to get that structure's allowed to move. It can move laterally, and one player can go out and put pressure. But you've got to make sure that you keep collapsing back to owning that space in front of them, not giving away that easy territory. If we do that, then we're much harder to score against on a penalty kill. And look, we're going to get penalties. It's going to happen. That's why I didn't have the goal as a separate one, because it was part of that. All right, the rest of the game is good news because we got all the rest of them. Let's have a look at our next one. Why did no one crash the net? Ah! Is there anyone in the slot? Let's have a look at how this unwinds. What should Craig be doing there? Any thoughts?
I should just move to the slot, essentially.
Slam
Yeah.
the brakes on and stop there. Watch what actually happens. Whee! Look where the puck ends up. Anyway, it's not a disaster. We'll work on it. What do? Shitty dribbler across the ice. Gets out of the zone for them, luckily. That's looking better, isn't it? And where the winger's going, Lockie's going in the corner for battle. Our other winger, I think that might be Holly. He's heading for the slot. Stick on the ice as a good target and a good option. Right where they need to be. Look at that beautiful triangle. So if you're the goalie there, what are you having to worry about?
The pass to the person in front of you.
Yeah, so you're in two minds, aren't you? That's where goals get scored against good goalies, when you provide options against them and they have to cover two. They'll cover one, but you can't get them both. So if Lockie gets a pass across, it's a goal, isn't it? We've got all this wide open net here. Happy times, yeah, see all that? 3/4 of the net, wide open. So the goalie's thinking, there's two here, what am I going to do? Oops, and that goes in around the outside. So although I think it was Holly doesn't get the assist for that, you can make a pretty good case that it was as much a positioning goal as anything else. Is that Holly? I think it is. I'm not certain. Right, but beautiful positioning. Right there for the rebound. Putting doubt in the goalie's mind. I don't know what's going to happen here. Really good play. So we had a nice triangle, which is good. Lockie had a pretty good night. So the thing that helped Lockie there out was he came at the goalie from an angle, forcing the goalie to have to move laterally a little bit, and that helps. And also the mistake the goalie made was to move backwards. If you had stayed forwards, then it cuts down the angle. And move backwards, it opens up a lot more net. Let's look at the lead up to it and see what actually happens. See what mistake they make to allow the breakaway in the first place. So have a look at what's happening in the neutral zone. What do you see?
Three versus two.
Where's their D?
High.
Yeah, they're up really high, aren't they? Doesn't take much for a turnover in that situation. It's almost all of them are up high. There's there's really only one in a position to move back and cover. I think their D's right up on the blue line up here. I'm not quite sure because I don't know who plays what position for that team. They've just got the one who also does the wrong thing, skates over towards Lockie. What should that D have done?
I just stay next to him, or like kind of stay there, but be ready to kind of push him out.
Go down here. Sorry, that should be a straight line, not a bent one. Should basically, instead of going over that way, should have done this. Stopped here. Because that would have forced Lockie to stay on that side. If you go to him, get around you. You're always on, if the puck handler always has the advantage, unless they're coming to you, because that's where they want to be. They want to end up here. That's where the goals are scored. Right. So that D's mistake was to go over towards and put pressure on high instead of playing position, getting back here and then owning this space and saying, you know what, you come to me. I'm not going to give you an easy shot, rather than I'm going to give you a chance to get around me. Understand that? All right. It's easy to wrong foot him there, especially at this level. No one can stop or change directions. Like he's on his own. He's already done it once from there. He's going to do it again. But again, it looks like it's all Lockie and it's not. We've got 20 shots to 6. Their goalie's tired. Now, this was an interesting one. This is another. Oh, sorry, what happened there? This is another. This is not another Tigers penalty kill. Now, for this defensive zone face-off, what's gone wrong here?
That wing on the Tigers side.
Absolutely, it's absolutely useless there. Serving no purpose at all. Much better off to have that guy over here, so they can move straight up into a box, put some pressure on these forwards. No one's going to score a goal there from in the corner. It's not a threat, at least not an immediate threat. Let's see what actually happens. Right, runs the clock down. We'll take that. Right, wingers all standing still. Instead of moving up into position, it creates unnecessary traffic, which puts a screen on Sard. And they get a shot through traffic, which we're a bit lucky that Sard caught that one. Now we do exactly the same thing again. Still wrong. Still not really a box, is it? Still pretty ragged. We need to improve that. Now what have we got?
They're all on one side.
Box is broken down again. It's even worse now, isn't it? Oh no. Some coach who thinks it's time for the change, but it's actually the end of the period. That was me. You guys can't hear the yelling, fortunately. All right. So we're still on the penalty kill, aren't we? Is that how we should set up our neutral zone face-off?
I'd probably put one back.
There should be two back. We should have 2D and 2 forwards, not 3 forwards and 1D. Now, what's happened there is, and you guys don't know this, and this is just like a learning thing, is that our D is in the penalty box. So when a D sits, the other's D sits it as well. So in that instance, the centre would normally drop back into D. And just get a winger to take the face off. Or if the centre's going to take the face off, have one of the wingers drop back. Doesn't really matter which way you do it. So that's looking better. There he goes again. Like he's standing feet. He was a bit lucky on that pick though, wasn't he? So when he got this little intercept up high, he was a bit lucky. But what mistake had they made?
Checking again.
Yeah, everyone was up. And they were probably expecting us to run a passive box, and we've just got one player being a little bit more adventurous, just putting a little bit of pressure on them, which they're not expecting because all season we've been doing pretty much a static box, haven't we? Now all of a sudden we've got a player sitting a little bit higher who picks off their pass because they're not, oh, what's this guy doing here? I didn't expect that. I thought they were just going to let us have it. We didn't just let them have it, and then as a result, Lockie gets past them and there's no defence home. It's like they're playing like the Maple Leafs. They don't do defence. Anyway, got a goal out of it. It's nice. It was something else that was, this is only a little snippet, but it's actually a really promising thing in the way we were occupying space. Have a look at this. I want you to look at the goal mouth in our defensive area. What did you see?
Some roughness.
I wouldn't say roughness. I'd just say being physically assertive. That was Alex holding position. Now, Alex isn't a big person. She's only little. And I think the forward she was defending on was a fair bit bigger than her, but she just held her space and said, you know what? This is mine. I'm allowed to hold this space. You're not getting it. And she took that player out. Right. So she sees the threat, says, righto, you know what? You're not scoring a goal. we have a little bit of a problem because they now have a second player floating around in the high slot because we haven't picked that one up. But Alex does her job and she does it beautifully well. Right. But we also have this loose player floating around here, which, because we've got possession, it's not a disaster. But then when they get possession, have a look at the situation we're in now. Alex is doing the right thing, but what's wrong?
The on Tigers on the left there near the ref is kind of just
Yep.
kind of useless, I think.
Bit of a spectator at that play.
Yeah,
Yep, absolutely. And what have they got?
a free man, unmarked.
In an absolutely very high percentage scoring shot. So what we should be doing, Alex is doing the right thing. She's taking her player out, but this guy needs to be marked. And this one should be hightailing it over there to say, you're not scoring a goal. Not today. Not on me. Still, Alex did a great job at holding that space. I went after that. I gave her a big pat on the shoulder and said, you know what, that was fantastic, great effort. Because that was really good from Alex. And there was one more goal. I think, and this was a bit of a maybe. I'm still not quite sure this one actually went in. Scoreboard says so, so that'll do. So they're claiming that went in. We don't have the camera angle to know for sure. And it was just kind of a push through and take a shot on the net and see what happens. And they're saying it went in. The lights are saying it didn't, but I don't know. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. So that's the Tigers game. Let's have a look at the Jokers. Joker's game was a fascinating game, and as the point was made earlier, it was much closer than the scoreboard shows at the finish. I think the Griffins scored first, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I think they scored pretty quickly.
Let's see what happened. So in terms of defensive structure, first of all, what actually happened? Describe what you just saw.
Yeah, just saw a guy wander around the back of the net and then pop it in.
But there's more to it than that, isn't there? It's not just the player skating around the back. There's other stuff going on. What else happened?
I just felt like the defense didn't know whose responsibility that guy was.
Yeah, it got a bit ambiguous, didn't it? So we muff a clearance. That happens. Now, we're doing the right thing there mostly.
Someone sort of pressured him right from there.
Well,
that
when we go behind the net, that's not our play though, is it? We let them skate behind the net because they can't, well, normally you can't score from behind the net. At that point, if someone skates behind the net, what we teach our defensive players is not to chase them. What do we teach them to do? Anyone remember? It's even got a call specifically for it.
Swap?
Switch.
Which?
Yeah. Switch. What does switch mean?
Like say it was Ben's responsibility, if he yells switch, then it's going to be, that player is going to be Tate's responsibility.
They switch responsibilities. And at that point, Tatum's responsibility should then be to go across to the post here and hold his ground. You're allowed to hold your ground. They're not allowed to knock you over. If they run into you, that's their problem. It's perfectly legal to hold your ground. You do not have to get out of their way. If they're skating into contested space, you just hold your ground, put your shoulders down and brace yourself and say, you know what, you want to get through me? Good luck. Not always easy to do, but that's the idea behind it. All right. And we sort of do it there too, don't we? Just not quite quick enough. Might get it a little bit better on the replay. All right, so at that point, we're just probably a little bit slow to pick up on it. And it's a nice wraparound goal. It got us pretty well. Pretty quick. You wouldn't normally expect that to happen in C grade. We know they've got a couple of players who are pretty good. But yeah, we just need to react to that a little bit faster. Now he's done it once, he's going to try and do it a lot. But the good news is if they're trying to get a wraparound, guess what they're not trying to do?
Prioritize defense.
Well, they're not trying to pass. You can have one offensive player behind the net, that's fine. If they're trying to get a wraparound, it's usually a pretty low option. Most goalies will pretty much find a wraparound fairly easy to defend against. Hamish was probably a little bit taken by surprise. Let's have a look at I think they got 2 early, didn't they? Oh no. We got 1 before they did. Let's have a look at a Joker's defensive zone face-off and see how it goes. How's that look?
Pretty good.
Not bad. Not exactly how we'd want it though, is it?
Maybe one of the wingers like moves over a bit.
Yeah. Because we want to get someone up onto that 52 quick smart, don't we? So one winger should be blasting through the back of the face-off circle. The other one should be going up to this point, to this guy here. And the D should be picking up 52 straight away on the drop of the park. Let's see what happens. Not far off. It's not bad. Not perfect, but it's pretty good. Just like a little bit of a minor shuffling of the defensive positioning is about all you really want. It's pretty close to spot on. All the players are pretty much where we want them. That's a good setup and creates a nice opportunity. We didn't convert it into an exit, but it doesn't always work out like that. But that's what we want to happen. So that was good. Let's have a look at our first goal and see what happened. What have we got now?
Nice little try.
Beautiful, isn't it? We've got a loose player in the slot. We've got a loose player in the Alex Ovechkin Memorial shooting position. They're not really covering anyone. Their D have pinched right in deep. Sorry, their wingers are down low, but that's not necessarily a problem where they are. You score a goal session.
Yeah, I did.
It's all right. Triangle, yeah, you can see how well it works. They marked it up a little bit, but again, it creates, you're in the right place, the pass comes across, and bingo, all you had to do was fire it at the net. Nice one.
It's a good pass from Jack too. Jack did all the work there.
Absolutely. But look at where you are, you're unmarked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I try to move in space, so
It's beautiful. It's really nice. Bang. Thank you very much. We'll take that. Nice pass, Jack. But a good setup all round. It was a really good piece of team play that allowed that to happen. Have a look at this one. You're on the penalty kill, yeah? That structure looks all right. It's not bad. Oh, Hamish, wake up. Should never have gone in. Like good structure. We forced. There was a shot from a long way out without much on it. That should never have gone in. But you know what? Sometimes they do. But I bet Hamish wants that one back. There's no way. That's a good setup for a defensive zone face-off in a penalty kill. We've got numbers where we need them. That's really well done. So that's just about perfect. Flung the puck out. We give ourselves time to get organised. Everyone's pretty much in the right spot. We've drifted across there, but that's okay because we're putting a little bit of pressure on the puck carrier. They bring it in, a little bit of pressure, not much. Just an active stick. Just kind of goes through everyone. Oh. It happens. And Hamish would want that one back, I'm pretty sure. They got another one. What's happened here?
Two versus one.
There's not. I don't think in that. I think in that instance, Tate's done the right thing. At that point, you've got to close it up. You can't go across to the other player who's arguably in a worse position. So I don't think that's an error on Tate's part. But let's see if we can't work out how it happened. And as it is, right, the shot goes in, and it still ends up getting rebounded. It's just that they get in on it, they pick up the rebound quicker. We've got numbers back. At this level, I think structurally we're pretty good. They were just better. And 97, we know Bouchard, we know he scores a lot of goals. Scores a lot of goals in C1. So he's going to pick up on that sort of stuff. Structurally, there wasn't an awful lot we could have done differently there, I think. They had, their quick guys on and they were just quicker than us, and they got in position and got a lucky bounce. That's the way it goes sometimes. We had numbers. One of them fell over. But I don't know there's much we could have done about that. Let's have a look at it again. Probably the only thing really was the high challenge by oh golly, what's your name again? Sorry. 35. Who had a great game, and I should remember his name, and it's terrible that I don't.
That's
Ben.
Mehmet, isn't it?
No, not Mehmet.
Ben.
Yeah, he went for that higher challenge and still managed to get back and cover his guy into the corner. But he got away, but he was still reasonably good at pressuring him. And again, we've got numbers back. They're just a bit quicker. And that's just a bunch of guys on with good individual skill and a lucky bounce. You know, that was a lucky bounce at a pop where it did. So yeah, that was just a good goal. There wasn't much we could do about that one. I mean, if you played it again and again and again, you could probably block it. But honestly, you'd just be trying to second guess something. And I think that was just one of those things, that one. They got 4 before we got one back, didn't they? I think from memory. Not that it really matters which way we look at it, but that's twice. All right. So at that point, we call the switch. We didn't call the switch. We've chased around the back of the net instead. Realised a little bit too late, and they're going to wrap around on us again. And Hamish's strength is not moving quickly from one side of the net to the other. So if I was trying to score goals on Hamish, I'd be going for wraparounds all the time. That's one of his weaknesses, and I think he knows that. And also, because he's got great big long spindly legs, massive 5-hole. So we're going to defend against that. We're just going to be a bit quicker on the switch. But yeah, it's going to happen. Let's have a look at our next one, because we had 2 by that stage, didn't we? I don't think we've looked at this goal yet. What have we got there? It's a forecheck. It's not a perfect 1-2-2, but it is at least a forecheck. So we are putting some pressure on them, which is good, because we need to put pressure on these guys. If we don't, they'll kill us. Well, not kill us, but you know what I mean. It's a goalie giving one of our forwards a shove, but that's all right. Does it again? Is that you getting pushed around, Session?
Oh, no.
Here's the thing. If you park
That's
yourself
Sam.
in front of the crease, expect a rowdy reception. It's normal. They're allowed to do it. They're allowed to push you out of the way. Not allowed to poke check you with a stick. Whee, get up quickly. Look at where they all are. Have a look at their defensive setup.
At that point, are we better off passing back up to Ben to clear
Yeah,
some of that congestion?
get a shot into the traffic if you can. At that point, Ben should be yelling out point. And we did practice that at a training session, remember?
Yep.
All right, so that's a great opportunity for that play. Ben's got pretty trustworthy hands. You can be pretty confident passing the puck back to him. It's not going to go astray and end up down the other end. So it's a good option.
He might even be able to shoot a goal. I've seen him do it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a decent shot on him. Just like that.
That's like that.
Just like that. And look at where they all are. All 5 of them are down below the hash marks. There was no cover on either of our D for that entire play. They were
I
totally.
feel like they do that quite a lot.
Yeah, they collapse. They collapse heaps. It's because they've got 3 players who are individually very good, but not very disciplined. And they're trying to do everything. So the other players are effectively traffic cones. And these 3 guys are doing a lot. That's their strength and their weakness. There's so much traffic down there. Do you reckon Sam, who's in goal for them, do you reckon he can see this coming? It's a beautiful pass by Jack too.
No, he had no idea that was coming.
Yeah, absolutely no idea at all. So we've got all this time and space. Jack with a lovely pass out there. Bang. Sam had no idea. There's like 8 bodies in front of him. He can't see it come.
Maybe that's our secret weapon against them if we do play them again.
Not a secret. We know how they play. They've been playing like that all season. None of it's new.
But
Perhaps we just need
Justine's
to-
saying that passing back to Ben's our secret weapon.
Or just executing that rather than looking like in the slot. Like if we know that they're crowding that, it makes it hard to get that pass
Yep.
if someone's there,
Yep.
but passing back up to D.
Absolutely. It's a good option when they're collapsing in deep like that. You'll see if you watch a lot of NHL games, and Boston are classic at doing it too. Boston give away the point. They all collapse in deep. Boston do a defensive structure which is called box plus 1. You can Google it and have a look, and there's a bunch of different explanations, and then watch some of their games, and you'll see that what it results in is that the D point from the other team with a lot of space. Their argument is that it's a shot from a bad. It's usually not a good shot, but if you let them drift in like Ben did there, like if Ben's right out on the blue line, it's not a particularly high percentage shot. But if he gets to creep in a bit closer because there's no one anywhere near him and he feels safe to do that, it becomes a really good shot. And he's got a shot on him. Let's have a look at this one. Oh yeah, use your points when you can. I don't think we've seen this one. Oh, we have seen one. Sorry. That was goal 4. We've already seen that. We wanted to see goal 5. So here we've got another penalty to kill. And look at where the face-off is. What's wrong with this picture?
It's down the wrong end.
Isn't it?
They worked it out eventually.
It's not where the face-off should be. If we've been penalised, it should be in our defensive zone. But okay. No, we're going to take it. Look,
Isn't that the new ref?
yeah.
Yeah.
But there's 2 of them.
I think they did blow the whistle and stop it and take it down there.
Play continues.
Oh, must have done it here. This is him doing it now.
Now they take it back, but it still run 20 seconds off the penalty. And it's like, oh yeah, it should be down the other end, shouldn't it? Yes, it should. It happens. New refs. That's the problem here is because we've got very, very new refs and new refs rather than very experienced refs and new refs. So it's that not quite enough experience. And what that's doing is unfortunately, it's putting those slightly more experienced or slightly less inexperienced referees in positions of more responsibility than they're really ready for. And it's kind of going to their heads a bit. They're not doing it deliberately, but they're kind of feeling as if they kind of know all of it. And so they're making mistakes just because it's a human nature thing to kind of make mistakes when you're in control, but you don't really have enough experience to know what you're doing. So that's why they're making all these mistakes all the time. It's not their fault. It's mainly a resourcing issue at the rink. It's hard to get referees. I believe they're giving them a pay rise. I believe it's actually quite lucrative now. So if it is something you're interested in doing, refereeing is a difficult challenge, but it's also something that at the end of the day, they're being paid to do it. They're being paid to do a good job. They're not being paid to skate around like they're volunteers. So every now and then you get one whinging and saying, oh, I'm refereeing to help you guys out. It's like, well, no, you're being paid to referee. You're a professional. Do it right. And that's not an unreasonable position to take. You don't have to be nasty about it, but we have an expectation that our referees should kind of know the rules. They're going to make mistakes, and that's fine, but, you know, know the rules, please. Sorry, I shouldn't rant about it, but anyway. This time they fixed it, as you point out. Now we get the face-off where it should be, and everyone's now very confused. But the clock's ticking down. That's okay. I don't mind a clock ticking down on a penalty kill. As that defensive zone face-off set up.
Yeah, it's okay. I guess they're still setting up.
Yep, I think it's okay. It's not ideal, but it's pretty good, especially given that everyone's everyone's still scratching their head wondering what's going on anyway. So they're kind of a little bit confused, but that's better. Get out of there, Mehmet. Get up high. That's not a good penalty kill, is it? That's a mess. They got a lucky deflection off some feet there too, which helped. But they had pretty good sustained pressure on us. And to be perfectly honest, at this point in the season, with those three guys on the ice, when we're killing a penalty, we're really up against it. Because they're good. They've got good puck skills. They're fast. They move the puck around well. They'll break up our structure. It's really hard, very challenging to defend against. Very challenging indeed. Just mainly because of individual skill. We just have to find a way to be more consistent with our penalty kill and see if we can avoid the penalty in the first place. But again, inexperienced referees, you're calling random stuff. Here's another one. Let's see how we go on this PK. They don't have their superstars on this time. That's not a bad looking setup, is it? That looks pretty good to me. If I was Tatum in that situation, what probably would have been my better option? Puck comes back from this face off. You're thinking, where am I going to put it? What do you reckon would be a good option there? Is that D?
Over.
Yeah, doing over, not enough. They're there in numbers. They've got one on the boards, one on the fence. So they're going to get it. You're not going to get it out of the area. At least if you put it around the other side with a bit of sauce on it, there's no one over there. You might clear the zone. Do clear it out, so that's good. That's looking better, isn't it? And they're offside. Yes. What happened there? Let's have a look.
We've kind of got too deep, which isn't ideal.
We've got 3 behind the red line.
Yeah.
They've got all this time and space. We're a bit lucky there. Well, we killed the penalty. We're a little bit lucky at times, but sometimes you need to be a little bit lucky in a penalty kill. And when our structure was good, we were much harder to score against. We just got caught everyone down deep on a couple of occasions, which is something we need to be really vigilant on. We're going to watch the last 2 minutes of the game because it's actually quite interesting. They got one on that one on a power play. Actually, no, let's watch the power play and see where it was. I think it was on the 3rd power play. Yeah, this is the one, I think. I don't think we've already seen this one. Or have we? Yeah, let's watch this penalty kill. Oh no, this is the crazy one. Sorry, my mistake. This is the one where everything went pear-shaped. Sorry, we don't need to watch it again. We'll watch the last 2 minutes because it was a really interesting last 2 minutes of the game. Didn't go the way we wanted it to, but we rolled the dice and had a go. So in that situation, if you ever find yourself there again, what it probably, and Jack, this is for you, because let's just have a look at the situation, right? Okay. They're all offside, yeah? And what that means we can do is you can skate up towards them and they're not allowed to touch you. So it's a good opportunity to set up some forward momentum. Just as this is a learning thing. I don't expect you to know this yet, but for all of you, if we're in a situation where they're offside in our defensive zone, we can skate up with the puck more because they can't put pressure on you. They're not allowed to, which also means our wingers can start moving forwards. And in this situation, where we've got a 6-on-5, we want to start a flood happening. We want to flood the other end. Rather than dump the puck up, we can carry it up and get behind them because there's nothing they can do. And some of them will get confused and will try and take the puck off you, in which case you then get a face-off at the other end in the defensive zone, which is a good thing. So instead, what we've done is we've given away the puck. Now we have driven it deep, and hopefully we can get a deep forecheck in. We're 6-on-5 now, so we can throw a lot more players in deep and try and get an intercept and maybe get an aggressive forecheck in. That's the basic plan in this position, is just to try and get behind them and pin them in there. Fortunately, they get it past us. And we got no one home. They fall over and miss. Can you miss from there? It happens. But they don't miss the second time. Nothing else much really happens from there out. But that's kind of it. So the videos are all there. You can have a bit of a look. But that's kind of the thing. Next week's games, we're playing. I think we're playing each other. I think it's another derby.
Next week or this week? This week, Jokers versus Lights.
Oh, okay. So it's a flip. Yeah, no worries. We're not playing a derby. Just so that you know, all know, if you haven't read the State of the Onion, it's almost definitely going to be a derby semi-final. It's almost impossible for it to be any other finish now with the way everyone is on points. The Griffins, unless they lose like 50-0 in the next two games, which is not going to happen, they're going to be straight through to the grand final. And then it will be Tigers v Jokers playing off again, unless the Lights have some monstrous win and win all the remaining two games. And I can't see it happening. They might win close margins, but they don't have any shooters, so they don't score many goals. That's probably their biggest weakness. So, out of curiosity, Sasha, when you subbed in for them, you're kind of our spy. What was different about how they did their pre-game and all that sort of stuff? What did they do different to us?
Their line changes are they try to do the whole line at a time.
Okay.
Is the biggest difference I noticed.
Yep.
They tend to play to a whistle as well, which is kind of hurts them.
They tend to do what, sorry?
Play to the whistle, so the whole line will stay on until the whistle goes. Yeah, they're not very good at actually changing.
So they're getting pretty tired.
Yeah, and generally like positioning and passing's not that great either. They tend to run into each other a lot, is what I saw.
But they do have a pretty good goalie.
Yeah, that's their strong point.
I think there was one game where we got like 30 shots on him for one.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That was pretty sad.
God.
That was actually very sad, that game.
He's
But
pretty good. But I mean, it's one of those things. There's this constant. We always have this debate amongst the coaching group because we all chat kind of on our own, and we all pretty much all know each other fairly well too. So we're always talking about the sort of the meta view, if you like, of what's happening with C2. And at this stage of the season, some players have improved more than others, and it's normal. It always happens, and there's a whole lot of different reasons. What happens then is some players will become arguably too good for the grade. And if it was the start of the season, so say for example, we wound back 13 games, Brockhouse was, keeping the way he was, and the three guys from the Griffins were playing like they were, and Jack and Lockie were playing like they were. All of those guys would be clearly too good for the grade at the start of the season, and we would move them up. And we did that with one of our players. I can't remember who it is now. The Griffins did it with one of their guys. I think it was Ben. They had to move him up fairly early. They kept him for probably a little bit longer than they should have, but they did move him up in the end, so that was good. And so you get that kind of pushing up, but you've also you don't want to punish people for improving. That's not very fair either. So you've got to, although being moved up a grade is not a punishment, it's a big pat on the back. You're too good for us. Up you go. Yeah, it's what everyone wants to hear. But it's managing that sort of transition. So at this stage of the season, even though Brookhouse, who is the Lights goalie, is clearly very good for a C2 goalie, he didn't start off that way. And because it's on his own, he's not actually significantly altering the results. They're still losing their games because, skill-wise, they probably should. They don't have that skill level. And they don't have the team structure, and they're trying to change lines and silly things like that. That's okay. That's up to them. They can do that. They can do it however they want. On his own, although he's making it hard to be scored against, he's also not scoring a gazillion goals. So that's okay, especially at this stage of the season. And the same thing with, Lockie scoring 5 last week, and like Jack got 5 earlier on in the season, and a few other things happening like that. Those guys, they're good in the grade, but it's been a gradual thing. And they haven't sort of popped up straight away as being superstars who clearly shouldn't be here, as we had like one at the start of our season. I think we had to move him up in the first week or two. Again, I can't remember who it was.
I call Chris, I think.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah.
I can't remember, it's a long time ago. But yeah, so there's always that churn, and it becomes an interesting issue of managing teams' expectations about their own standard and also the standard of their opponents. Where it got controversial a couple of weeks ago was when Will from the Griffins filled in for the Lights and scored their goal, which ultimately ended up in them winning the game. I think, did they win that game? Yeah, they did. They won 1-0. And where that became a little bit controversial is that it had a significant influence then on the results and what could happen with regards to ladder, because that game was then won by the Lights, and I think it was against Jokers.
Yeah, it was the Jokers game. Jokers Lights.
What that did was that then put the Griffins into a position where we couldn't knock them off the top of the ladder. So it actually influenced the ladder, which is significant, because what that means from my perspective as a dev squad coach, obviously coaching both the teams, we would prefer to have a dev squad derby grand final than dev squad derby semi-final. In both cases, one of you is not going to win it, but that would be a good outcome for us. We would love that. So, great, both of our teams are in the grand final. One's going to lose, but at least they both kind of made it there, which is pretty damn good. And we've had that happen in the past. We've had derby grand finals. But because that's happened, we're now in a situation where that cannot possibly happen. So it's actually not deliberately, they didn't mean to do it, but it's manipulated the ladder in such a way that it's actually had a significant outcome on how the finals can work. And so that's why it sparked off an interesting discussion amongst the coaches, trying to come up with some sort of a formula or some sort of a rule or some sort of even just a guideline with regards to what players can substitute from one team into the other. Because as you go up through the grades, if you're playing, say for example, you're playing B3, you can pull up players from B4 to play in B3 to fill in for missing players. The theory being you can build up your numbers, but you can't influence the game by doing it. Because usually a player from a lower grade going up into higher grades not going to have a significant influence on that grade, because if the grading structure is working, it's going to work out fairly fair. You can't pull players from the same grade, and you can't pull players from a higher grade, again, because that would influence the result of that particular game more so than there would be an acceptable risk. But of course, in C2, there is no lower grade to pull from. So what are you going to do if you're trying to fill up your team, to fill up your squad, because you're short a few players? Because in that particular instance, I think the Lights had 4 players pull out at the last minute, and so they were going to be pretty short. So they just said, "Hey, who can come and play for us?" And Will, who just loves to play hockey, it's not his fault. He just loves playing the game. Said, "Oh, I'll do it," and they said, "Yep, no worries," without really thinking about it. And all of a sudden, it's now, had a fairly significant influence on the ladder. There's nothing we can do about it this season, but kind of going forward, we're trying to think about what can we do with the information that's available throughout Hockey Side and the results about managing those situations, so that not only do you not have unfair situations, but you also don't have the perception of unfair situations, where a player who is arguably too good for the grade anyway is now subbing in for another team and then having an impact on the results. And there isn't an easy answer to it. We've come up with a few different things, like have they scored points in high grades? Have they played a certain number of games in a higher grade? Have they scored too many points in this grade? Do the coaches just kind of say, "Hey, that guy's too good," and so forth? There's all these different kind of ideas we're tossing around. We don't have a good answer for it yet, but we're certainly aware of the issue, and we don't want to have a situation like we had 2 weeks ago, where all of you guys were jumping up and down quite cranky about it, and understandably so, I was as well, where it had manipulated the result of a game in a manner which probably shouldn't have. Again, not really anyone's fault. It was just a perfect storm of circumstances. There was also a referee who was doing a second ever game as a ref, so you had that inexperience. You've got a player subbing across who's a bit too good for C2, playing D, but scored their game-winning goal, scored the only goal. So it's a difficult situation. So we don't have an answer for it yet, but it's certainly something we're thinking about. Anyway, that'll do for tonight. We'll see all of you Saturday, I think, is our next games. Was it Friday?
I think Jokers is Friday.
Friday at 10:20.
Oh, good. The fun one.
And then the Friday after again.
Oh, good. The fun one.
We don't need sleep.
No, that's all good. All right, so thank you for coming. This is all recorded. I'll stick the recording up on YouTube, and you guys can share it on the group chat and have a look at it if you want. And yeah, see you on the weekend.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.